Of all the nuggets in this series, this one is probably the most near and dear to my heart. Preventing troubleshooting with network maintenance. Let me explain. When I originally created the slides for this nugget, I had planned on talking about this topic last, but just now decided to flip it around and talk about it first because I think it really sets the context for the entire thing. Let me introduce you to two very successful IT guys, Rico and Bob. First off, I know you're looking at this guy, you're like, that dude doesn't belong in IT at all. And you're right. These are just clip art guys that I found. I'm like, royalty free, here we go. Maybe their image characterizes them, maybe not. Let me describe them. Rico is loved by everyone. Why? Because everybody sees him as an IT hero. Now, I chose that phrase very specifically. Here's why. It could be describing a server administrator, a desktop support technician, a network technician like we're talking about in this T-Shoot series right here. Essentially, an IT hero is an administrator that when something's on fire, you call him, he runs in, figures out what it is, and it could be the laptop of a CEO, it could be the network infrastructure for a branch office. Essentially, this guy comes to the rescue, solves the problem, walks away, everybody's like, man, Rico is the man. He is awesome. If there's an issue, day or night, I'm choosing my words carefully right now, day or night, Rico will fly in and solve the issue and walk away the hero. Now, Rico feels like a stud most days because he comes in and solves the issue. He's like, hey, everybody's like, giving him a standing ovation. Everybody knows Rico. Rico feels like he has a job forever and probably does. That's why I said two very successful IT administrators. I'm not pointing at Rico like, man, this guy is messed up or anything like that. This guy probably does have a job forever because he comes in, he saves the day. Everybody's like, I don't think our company could survive without Rico. He gets the Unsung Employee of the Year award. People bring him carrot cake because he helped them at 10 o'clock last night get connected to the VPN that was down, and nobody knew it was down until the CEO tried to connect to the VPN. You know who Rico is. And the problem doesn't typically show up with the company. The problem shows up with Rico, to where it starts eating away at his very soul that no amount of carrot cake can fill. He finally starts realizing, you know what? I am a slave to my job. I am working 24/7. Oh my goodness, this just hit me. I just had a conversation Monday. Today's Wednesday. 2 days ago, I had a conversation with a guy. I was talking with him at just over coffee. I was like, oh, what do you do? And he goes, I upholster furniture. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have guessed that. I said, you kind of talk a pretty good IT talk. He goes, oh, no, I used to be an IT director for a large health insurance organization. I was like, oh, how long have you been out? He's like, I've been out for a year. It wasn't worth it. And I was like, oh, Rico. This guy's name was Paul. But, I'm like, really? What happened? He's like, I was working all hours of the day and night. I never saw my family. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like this is a case study for the series that I'm doing right now. It's reactive IT. You can feel it as I'm talking. Reactive IT. Initially it feels good. You're the hero. I can save the day. And when people are like, how did you know that? You point to your head. You're like, it's all up here, baby. Right? There's no documentation for what I'm doing. I know it all up here. I know my network diagram. I know, but you can't hire anybody else because you never developed the system as a whole. You can't cross-train anybody else unless they're as good as you, and the company can't afford somebody as good as you. You've sold your soul to IT. So let me introduce you to Bob, who I'm just looking at that laptop. That brick is awesome. So anyway, Bob also loved by everyone. Do you see the common ground here? But he's not looked on as a hero, although maybe somebody has made that statement about him sometime in the past. He's more looked upon like a wizard. Now, when I say wizard, immediately, and this just popped into my head just now, I think about the Wizard of Oz, right? Where there's this elaborate, amazing system that's in front of everybody. It's like, oh, we're off to see the wizard. Envisioning it. You guys know the Wizard of Oz, right? What's going on behind the scenes? They pull back the curtain, and the Wizard of Oz is like this little guy right over. And I'm not talking about Bob being a little guy. This just popped into my head as I'm talking. The reason he's looked on as a wizard, just like the Wizard of Oz, is he took the time. He took the time to build this system proactively, right? To where there's monitoring set up. There's maintenance being done on regular cycles. This dude is available 8x5, right? He's 40 hours a week on normal and emergencies. Because don't hear me paint this picture like, man, you don't want to be Rico and be like Bob so you can sit and watch TV. Oh, it's a 40 hours. No, IT by its very nature has issues that happen, and there's going to be times to be a hero. That's why I'm saying, sometimes they may have called him a hero, but it's very few and far between because he designs his system redundantly. When can I tell you something? And this, I feel like who am I? I'm like a recovering Rico, right? When the budget comes due, Rico's the hero because he cuts the redundancy. He's like, hey, I can get by with that. We can just put that device in there, and until that device goes down, and people I'm so flustered I can't even talk. When that device goes down, people don't think about the money you saved them on the budget. They think about, I can't do my job. So that's why Bob is looked upon as the wizard. Yes, he spends a little more money than Rico, at least initially, when he's setting this thing up. But the thing keeps running all the time. 99.999% uptime. The last outage that they had wasn't his fault. It was the ISP. And it was because the company decided not to go with a redundant ISP. And Bob got that, grin on his face like, well, I kind of told you, right? Now, he's not an I told you so kind of guy. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? I've said enough on this idea. That's the idea of proactive network maintenance that I want to convey in this nugget. What does the road to Bobdom look like? It is establishing the network maintenance procedures. Before I go anywhere in this description, you're not alone when you come to this. I feel like so many IT administrators are like, okay, I want to be like Bob. I want out of the matrix, if you will. What do I do? And they feel like they have to engineer this system on their own. They don't. There are many different methods out there. FCAPS, ITIL. If anybody's heard of ITIL, that's project management certification. That's the mindset of proactive IT. If you really, really want to become like Bob and then consult for others and teach them how to become Bob, get ITIL certified. You will realize just how amazing ITIL is when you start understanding the vision that they have for it. Cisco created their own. They realized not everybody has the time to go through 50 months of training for ITIL, no joke. But they created their own little subset of it called PPDIOO. It stands for Cisco Prepare, Plan, Implement. No, wait. Prepare, Plan, Design, Implement, Operate, and Optimize. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. Essentially, it's a life cycle. You'll see on their website they've got this little thing going around, and it's free. It's open. So if you're like, how do I get started? I'm a recovering Rico. How do I become Bob? Go to Google, type in Cisco PPDIOO. They have guides. They have best practices that will help you. What do those guides encompass? Here it is. Number 1, change control. Project managers will tell you this is change management. Essentially, anytime you change the system, it should not be done haphazardly. And you may do some planning. You may say, okay, I'm doing this in an outage window, all that kind of stuff. Be careful. It's so easy to fall into that haphazard. I can't tell you how many times I schedule an outage window from 10 p.m. to midnight, and I find myself sitting there at 3 a.m. Who's with me on that? You're like, what happened? I thought I was just going to recable a couple devices. This rack is empty. I made some poor decisions. Your phone's ringing at 4 because people wake up at then and start to work. What kind of world do we live in that people are working at 4 a.m. besides IT people, right? And you're like, I never saw this coming. That's change control, change management, communication, scheduling the appropriate window, laying out a project plan for what you plan to do, following up. I will tell you the weakest point of IT administration is communication every single time, because it's almost like we feel like if we don't tell somebody that we're going to do something, then we can kind of slide it under the radar and they'll never know. Oh, I can tell you how many times that came back to haunt me. Documentation, keeping it up to date all the time. It does not mean, one of the things, can I tell you, Visio, I'm on an anti-Visio kick. I know you're like, that's not where I thought he'd go. I am on an anti-Visio kick, and I will say, even OmniGraffle, everything like it. The whole reason why, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a network diagram, but one of the things that totally derails me is how long it takes to keep network diagrams up to date. First off, to build a network diagram, you may think an hour, right? You may think 60 minutes, I can do this, but it ends up taking you like 5 hours to create this thing. Now, there is a place for network diagrams, but one of the things I will warn you about is don't spend all your time on a network diagram and then miss the other stuff, right? The IP addresses, the subnets, what is this WAN link, documentation on escalation processes, how do I get a hold of my carrier in case of this, do they have 24/7 support, if so, what do I do to call them, and what is my, oh my goodness, what is my account number for them? I will tell you at 3 in the morning when you're on the phone with that carrier and they're like, I'm sorry sir, what was that account number? You're like, I don't know. I'm in a data center. Can you hear me? I can't get the circuit up. They're like, I'm sorry, sir. I can't proceed without your account number. You're like, it's one of those kind of, I'm speaking from experience. I've been there. So creating all of that documentation that you need to make things operate. Communication, I gave it its own line item. Communication before, after. It never hurts to over communicate. I was just coming down to this. I had the thought shoot through my head. Schedule maintenance windows and monitoring. Schedule maintenance windows mean that you have a maintenance window weekly or monthly or whatever, based on the size of the network you're managing. Have the maintenance window even if you don't have maintenance. Remind people about it. Hey guys, every Friday 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is our typical network maintenance window. Just want to let you know. Hammer that thing into their mind so when you do have maintenance and people forget, even though you communicated, they go, oh, that's right. It's 11 o'clock on Friday. I totally forgot that this is the network maintenance window. Make it consistent and routine, even if there's no maintenance window scheduled. I'm not saying, don't hear me wrong, don't take down the network just because you want to during the maintenance window. I'm saying remind people that that's your rotating window that's always there, right? Monitoring. Can I show you something? Can I show you something I'm very proud of? And I made sure, I think I did, that there was no incriminating information in here. This is PRTG. This is a PRTG Network Monitor. One of the sites that I manage, some of you know that I run an IT company. It's up to 18 employees now. We just hired a project manager. I'm so excited about it. But anyway, this is one of our sites. Right here I can see this is the probe device. Can I just click it? This is essentially the device at the site doing the monitoring. At any point in time, I can look and be like, ooh, look at that, free space on the C drive. We might want to, take a look at that. Looks like, it dropped down in the last 25 hours. Maybe something got installed there. But anyway, I can look down. This is a Windows server. I'm looking, print spooler. Looks like we're okay. And this utility. Now right here, I'm like, ooh, this is good information right here. DHCP, 10.223.3 addresses. I'm looking. Looks like free. We've got 128. 67 currently used from that lease. I see all the other DHCP scopes that are running right there. Server uptime 25 days. Okay, that's good. Probably rebooted for Windows updates or something like that a little while ago. Wireless. I click on that, and I can see all the wireless access points. How long have they been running for? 15 days. What is the current? Looks like we have some inconsistency. Someone monitored the wrong interface right there. Now you might say, well, for those of you that have network monitors, aren't there more sensors for an access point? Yes, there are. Actually, what I do is I typically trim down the access point to exactly what I want to see, because sometimes too much information can be just as dangerous. Now, there are different approaches to this. Some people will say, I want all the information. They're proud of their 2 terabytes of syslog messages that they log every single day. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm good with that. But for me, I've found this happy medium with too much and too little. This is the switches. I don't monitor every single port in every single environment. I monitor the key ports, the uplinks, the ports connected to servers, so I can at any point go in and monitor. I'm proud that this switch has been running for 329 days. That's cool. That makes me feel good. This is my Bob. I'm Bob when I look at this. I'm like, this is good. This site, and I can't reveal what site this is. This site is one of the sites that I always call them before they call me. I call them and I'm like, hey, just to let you know, we detected a network outage. Something's going on with the switch in the west wing of your building. It's going to affect a couple. That's not good. Let me minimize that. It's going to affect a couple of the sites. Or a couple of now. Oh, great! Now I've got that. Now I'm having my Rico moment, right? The alarms just went off. You know what I'm meaning there, right? That's the monitoring. That's what I'm talking about. Consistency, having the same brand equipment all the way through. Let me just erase this off real quick, right? Consistency means that I buy the same. Yes, it may cost a little more to have the same model everywhere, but you want to have that same consistency because, having all Cisco devices, or, let's just go outside the box. Having all, I'm trying to think of a vendor that I would trust outside of Cisco. Having all Cisco devices has awesome value, right? It may cost you a little bit more, but there's more than just having the same vendor. It's also, if you think about it, okay, we get some brand X devices on sale, half the price of what the Cisco was. But you don't count the cost of what it costs to train in that device, to remember the syntax for that device, to remember, oh, that site's a little bit different all around, right? Cycling equipment. I'm not talking about power cycling. That I just realized that could be interpreted multiple ways. Power cycling, if you have to power the equipment, I would wonder how stable is it. What I'm talking about is mean time between failure. You can go to any vendor that's reputable and say, what is the mean time between failure for your devices? I will tell you, for network devices, a lot of times you'll see things like 5 years, 7 years, 10 years sometimes. What the best practice is to cycle it, again, based on your organization's budget, long before you reach that mean time between failure. The goal is not to stretch it and say, okay, well, if it's 10 years, then I'm going to stretch it to 9. Okay? Mean time means it's kind of like the average, right? There's going to be some that fail before, some that fail after, and what on earth are you doing keeping network devices running for 10 years anyway? You should be upgrading to the next standard by then. Maybe 5 years, I would say, is a good average to start cycling your network devices, changing it out, upgrading. Okay, that wing's going to be upgraded at the same time. That is the Bobness that you will have, right? Rico stretches it to the last possible second because part of his heroism is that he costs as little as possible, not realizing how much it costs the organization when there is that outage. One outage where an entire wing of employees is unproductive long eclipses how much it would cost to rotate those devices proactively. If I were to characterize the IT community as a whole, I would say it's probably 85% Ricos, 15% Bobs. Just a gut level feel. Me, myself, I am a recovering Rico. I've walked that road of Rico for a long time, and I'm ready to be Bob. Give me that big old Sputnik of a laptop and a 2-week vacation. That's what can be had with proactive network maintenance. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.